welcome to the Brewery Adventure, where we explore the vibrant world of local breweries and the incredible atmosphere they create. I'm Tim.
And I'm Courtney. If you've ever wondered what makes a brewery more than just a place to grab a drink, you're in for a treat.
In each episode, we'll cover the places making beer, from the cozy corners of neighborhood tap rooms to the bustling energy of larger brew houses.
We're not just talking about the beer. We are celebrating the ambiance, the culture, and the community that make each brewery a unique destination.
So whether you're a regular at your local brew pub or just curious about what's out there, join us as we uncover the magic behind the taps.
Let's embark on the brewery adventure together.
Cheers!
Cheers!
Hey, Courtney, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
I'm doing wonderfully, ready to record about another great brewery.
Absolutely. I think this was the first time that we hit our cheers at the same time.
Yeah, well, you know, it's almost impossible to do that, right?
But we did it.
Yeah,
I feel like we did it.
It's okay. I mean, if you're in person, it doesn't have to be at the same time, right? I mean, everything's good.
No,
everything's good. But
we've tried to coordinate this and it's been rough.
speaking of cheers, not the TV show, but speaking of our cheers, we need to open our beers, right?
Oh, gosh. We do, yeah.
We need to open our beers because that's what we do when we're recording this podcast. We drink beer from the brewery that we're talking about. So let's just start off with just a short mention about what brewery we are talking about. It is called Bobbing Bobber Brewing Company.
That's a mouthful.
It is a big mouthful. And in fact, they know that. They know it's a big mouthful. So on their website, they say you can call them 3BC if you want.
I think I have a harder time remembering 3BC than Bobbing Bobber.
Yeah, I mean, Bobbing Bobber is a great name. I mean, it's a great name. But we're drinking beer tonight from Bobbing Bobber Brewing in Hutchinson, Minnesota. And that is about an hour west of Minneapolis. We have been there twice, I believe, right? Recently.
Yes.
And we'll get a little bit more into Bobbing Bobber and why we like it so much later. But let's get these beers open. Courtney, which beer from Bobbing Bobber are you drinking tonight?
Okay, you gave me beers.
This one? Yep.
This one says that it's the Crappy Flop IPA.
No. Come on, Courtney. I know you're not from Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. You are from our neighboring state, the great state of Wisconsin. But they do have lakes there, and I assume they have this fish. And what is this fish called?
This says crappie.
It's not a crappie. It's a crappie.
That would be spelled with an O.
No. Okay, well, we can talk about language on another podcast. But on this one, I believe they mean it to mean the fish name, which is crappie. So it's crappie flop. What kind of a beer is it?
It's an IPA.
Oh, wonderful. Why don't you give that one a pop and we'll hear what it sounds like. Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, love it. Give it a first taste. What do you think?
Oh, that's a drinker.
Oh, wonderful.
I'd give it a 5-0.
It says it's a 5. Was that what my glasses? This is small print. I'm reading. 6.2% ABV.
Well, this so on the can it says Lane likes Citra hops. Dan likes Chinook hops. They each have unique qualities with notes of pine, grapefruit, and citrus that create a delightful sessioned IPA.
Oh, number. Yeah. Wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I'm glad you like it. That's why I bought the IPA. I know you love that style of beer generally, and
I do.
I'm glad you're liking them. I have a couple of them at home as well, and I will try them at another point. But tonight, I have another one that I purchased called Wanna Shake Your Tree.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I had this at the brewery.
I think you probably did, because I think I remember tasting it from yours that you had. It is a peach cream ale, and it's only 5% ABV. So, yeah.
So you can have like 2.
This one says a subtle taste of Minnesota summer. That's how we describe this peach cream ale. It's just different than anything else out there, taking the great flavor of a cream ale and combining the sweet taste of fresh peaches to it. We named it in homage to one of our favorite song lyrics. I really love your peaches, want to shake your tree.
That's perfect.
There you go. I'm going to pop this baby open. Here we go. Oh,
Oh,
that
that was a
sounded
good one.
Give it a little pour too. I have a glass, so
Oh, I was not that fancy.
we'll give a little pour. Mmm. Oh, it does smell delicious.
I feel like I remember that one.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I'm not a huge peach fan. I don't eat a lot of peaches or anything, but this is.
I
It
think that's
smells
exactly what
delicious.
I remembered from ordering it was that I'm getting this peach beer, but peach is not really a flavor that I would normally go for. But then I tasted the beer and I was like, oh, this is great.
I do like it. I do like it a lot. It's very tasty and the nice low alcohol content, so you could have a number of them be just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Courtney, what other beers did we try when you were there? Did you remember which other beers you tried while we were there at the brewery?
I do remember I tried they have fun names. I
Yeah,
feel like
they have a
all
lot.
of
They
the
have a
beers
lot of
like
fun
that.
names for their beer. Yeah.
Yeah. So I tried one that was called How Do You Like Dem Apples?
Wonderful. Yep. It's an apple
That was
ale.
a
It
good one.
says.
There was
Yeah.
yeah. And it was great. And
Mhm.
I had one that was 5 o'clock Shadow Cream Ale.
Oh, okay.
I remember that one also being super great.
Yep.
There was one called Hibernation, and there was this one I can remember the smell. The smell was so good. It was Murky Waters Orange Dreamsicle,
Oh.
and it was amazing.
Did it remind you of the orange dreamsicle when you
It
drank
did.
it?
The
Wonderful.
smell, the taste, it was
I'm always
spot on.
impressed when when you see a beer on a list and it has a name, like, oh, this has got dreamsicle. It's orange dreamsicle. And I've
Yeah.
had beers like that, and it's just like, I mean, it's a decent beer, but it doesn't remind me of that. Like, I wouldn't have guessed it if you just gave it to me.
That
you
one
say-
that one had the orange flavor, and it also had like the creamy dreamsicle flavor that went with it.
Oh, wonderful. Yes. Well, we have a lot of good things to say about the beer at this particular brewery. It is wonderful, and they do have a lot of really interesting names. One of the ones that I had was called Boats and Oats.
Love it.
It's an oatmeal stout, a nice dark beer, and it was wonderful. I enjoyed it a lot. And then right at the end of the night when we were there last time, I was needing to drive home, of course. So I needed to lay off the beers, and we were still going to be there for a little bit. So you purchased me a root beer that they make called Nibble Nibble, which it was a good root beer. Not again. I love a brewery. We've been to other breweries recently, and an upcoming episode we're going to go to LTD Brewing in Hopkins, and that one. Actually, no. Wait a minute. I'm in the future from that episode
You're in the
right now.
future.
That episode has already been out. You've already listened to it. You'd heard me talk about the root beer. I think at LTD. This root beer at both at Bobbing Bobber was also very good. I love it when a brewery makes a root beer because they know what they're doing with the brewing, and
Yeah.
they usually come out really well. And I did enjoy that one as well. So a lot of good options at Bobbing Bobber.
I will say I did have one beer at the end that I maybe didn't care for.
Yeah, which one was that?
So I had my flight as usual, and
Yeah.
I had 4 really
No,
awesome,
hold-
superb.
Hold on, Courtney. They don't call them flights.
What?
They don't call them flights. They have flights like a lot of breweries do, but they don't call them that.
What did I get?
They call it a school.
Ah, I see what you did there.
Yeah, I see what
All
they
right.
did. What they did, yes. It is, yeah, I thought it was really unique. I didn't notice it right at first either, but they call them a school, which is kind of cool. School of fish, school of beers. I love it.
How did I miss this?
I don't know, because they have such great theming throughout this entire place. So
I completely missed the flights being called a school.
yeah, but anyway, so you had this one beer in your school that maybe failed,
No,
didn't get
my
a good
school
grade.
was great. My school of beers was fabulous.
But this one fish in the school was lagging behind.
Well, after my school of beers, I
Yeah.
went up and just ordered a pint of beer, and
Okay,
I was emboldened
Yep.
by my flight that everything's fantastic. So I'm
Yep.
going to commit to a pint, and I got the Hootie Hoo Salted Brown, because how can you go wrong with that name?
It sounds wonderful.
It sounds wonderful. The beer was not for me. I remember that it's one of the very few beers that I have rated less than a 5 on Untapped, and
Oh,
I felt horrible about it. Absolutely horrible. I didn't finish it. And I remember when we left, we could have exited out kind of like a back door, but
yeah.
you guys made me walk out the front door with you in front of the bar, in front of the beer tenders who had been so lovely to me. And I didn't want to make eye contact with them. I didn't want them to know that I rated one of their beers less than a 5. I felt terrible. So I exited with my head down, hiding my face in shame. And that's how it ended there.
Yeah. So just that one beer didn't hit it for you.
The other ones were amazing.
Yeah, and that's typical of most breweries. There's almost always going to be at least one beer that doesn't, it just doesn't appeal, right? She can't answer because she's drinking.
I'm drinking.
Yeah.
I still feel bad today. I feel like I'm hanging my head all over again.
Yeah. So let's back up a little bit and discuss a little bit about why we have ended up at Bobbing Bobber Brewing, because it is an hour west of town. This is farther out than the first episode that we did on Waconia Brewing. This one is even farther out than that. You can drive by Waconia and still go for another half an hour or more before you get to Hutchinson. And, but we were out in this part of our wonderful state for a very good reason. And that reason is...
It was a Munzie event, and we have discussed Munzie a little bit before. It's a geolocation game. We usually go to an event, at least an event a month for Munzie, where we all get together and do this cool thing. And we went out to Olivia, Minnesota, which is the corn capital of the world.
That's what they say.
So we were out beyond Hutchinson for this Munzie event, which was a great Munzie event. There's like a lot of corn things happening out there, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. But
so
we were
after
looking
that
for a
first
brewery.
event, that was earlier this year, I think in the spring, or very early summer, as I remember. Yeah. And we were looking for a brewery, which is what we usually do after such events.
Yes.
And I think Olivia had a brewery, and we tried stopping there, and it was closed that day, I think.
It was very sadly closed. But it was like the middle of the afternoon on a weekend, maybe? It felt like a weird time for someplace to be closed.
Yeah, it had to have been a Saturday. I mean, I don't, Munzie events are usually on Saturday or Sunday. This was the Saturday, I'm pretty sure. But so he's like, okay, well, Google machine, tell us where the next brewery is. And we wanted one that was on our way back towards Minneapolis, of course, because we don't want to go the wrong direction. And Hutchinson is right in the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we ended up at
it was kind of
Bobbing
accidental.
Bobber. Yeah. And we're so glad that we just stopped in there, because a lot of the reasons that we've talked about already, their beer is very good. The theming of the entire place is on point. I mean, it's
incredible.
They name the beers with the fish names. They have the tables in the main part of the brewery are all dock sections.
It's super cool.
We were there when we were there the first time. They had like a rowboat, like a fishing rowboat cut in half. And then they had like the oars and the flotation devices and everything else there, so you could put those things on and take photos. Look like idiots, like you're trying to row a half a boat.
It was great.
Yeah, Courtney will post at least one of those pictures on our Instagram page, so make sure you follow.
Mostly because I'm not in it.
Yeah, she's not in it. She was taking the photo. You'll see me and another friend of ours, Russ, in that photo. Anyway, so yeah, just a cool place that does great with their theming, great with their beer. So just a wonderful small town brewery. I mean, Hutchinson, not a huge town, little under 15,000 people in the last census. So, I mean, not a huge place, but this brewery is very good.
It's really, really cool. And I'm not into fishing. I'm not a big fisher person, clearly, because I don't know the difference between a crappie and a crappie.
Right.
But the theming inside of there is just so cool. It just feels great when you're there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And like we were talking, this back up just a little bit. Like we were talking, we were out in that area because of Munzie events. And if you haven't played Munzie or known about Munzie, you should check it out. It's munzie.com. That's MUNZEE.com. And you can find out about the cool game that we play and then go to breweries.
Yeah. Because that's what we do. And it's awesome.
That's what we do. That's what we do. But we were out there for a very cool, event. This last time was more leading up right around Christmas time here. It was in the winter. And so when we were at the brewery, they had like their Christmas tree up and stuff. So that half boat was gone and they had a Christmas tree in its place. Really great. They had all kind of the lights and everything. It was really, really pretty and beautiful in there. But we were in Hutchinson for another Munzie event. And this time it was taking place in Hutchinson, and it was at Riverside J.C. Park, and then right next to that there was a wildlife sanctuary, and as we played our game, we had to kind of walk around that entire thing. So we were next to the water, and then seeing the wildlife sanctuary, which had that huge herd of deer in it.
Yes.
And then, of course, lots of geese and ducks and things like that. And so it was a wonderful place for an event. Happy birthday again to Boomerang 20. That event was in celebration of her birthday. She turned 30. And so that was very cool.
It was a great location.
Yeah, it was a great location for an event. What else did we need to talk about? Oh, we missed one major thing we haven't talked about yet.
I know.
Yeah, the bathroom review.
Oh, that's different than what I thought it was going to be. What is your bathroom review?
Then we have two things to talk about then. We always do a bathroom review. At least I do. I don't know if Courtney's interested in doing a bathroom review, but I'm super interested in doing a bathroom review. I did use the bathrooms at this particular establishment like you do at most breweries, and I found them to be very nice. It was a very nice bathroom, very, very clean, and had everything I needed, and I could get out without touching the door, as I remember, which I love. So I think it had one of those little kick things on the bottom of the door, as I remember. One negative about the bathrooms that I wanted to mention is they have two separate bathrooms, one marked women, one marked men, which is not untypical. I'm not saying that that's wrong. I'm just saying that's not. But because they're just individual bathrooms, like one person at a time uses them, it's not like multiple people are in there. You go in, you lock the door, etc. There's, in my mind, there's no reason for them to be labeled men and women. Because ladies end up waiting a lot longer for bathrooms generally than men do. And there's no reason why they couldn't use the one that I used, for instance. Just a small thing in my mind. I think you could just label them. Anybody can use these bathrooms and you'd be just fine.
And I did use the bathroom, and I remember it just being spacious and clean and nice.
Yeah.
But if the one marked for women's had not been available, if it had been occupied, I for sure would have been pushing the door on the men's side.
I believe it.
Just saying.
Yeah. I know you would have. I
got to pee. Let me in.
Yep. What was the other thing that you wanted to talk about as far as Bobbing Bobber goes?
I just wanted to point out that the Bobbing Bobber is kind of the birthplace of our podcast.
Oh, yes. That's right. It certainly is.
It was, I mean, we had visited plenty of breweries together prior to this one, but it was when we went to this particular brewery with their fishing theme that they just they really stick to it. Everything is fishing themed in there. It's fantastic. Again, even if you're not a fishing type person, it's just really, really cool. But it was there that we thought, hey, people this is out in Hutchinson. How many people drive, especially from the metro area, out to Hutchinson to check this out?
Now, did we don't want to rewrite history. Did we actually talk about it while we were there, or did this spark happen in your mind and then you told me later? Because I don't remember.
No, we talked about this there.
Okay.
We 100% talked about this.
Yeah, I couldn't remember what brewery we were at when we first talked about doing a podcast. We're at a lot of breweries, so it's hard to remember.
It was this one.
Okay. No, I remember it was this one that sparked it. I just didn't remember whether we talked about it the first time we were there.
Yeah, it was the first time we were there.
That is very cool.
We should do this thing.
It is. It's kind of like, it's weird. It is weird because we've been to so many around the Twin Cities, and we have so many breweries in the metro area that it is weird that this is the one an hour outside of town that would have sparked the idea to do this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it was a lot to do with they have a very particular theme that they stuck to, that they did really, really well.
Yeah.
And it's just really cool to be in that space.
Yeah, absolutely. All good things about Bobbing Bobber. What, we had one beer that was kind of but other than that,
I'm so sorry.
all
I am so incredibly sorry.
she feels so bad when she can't rate a beer 5.
I do. It's a problem.
Well, give me your rating on the crappie flop then, because you've been drinking it while we've been doing this podcast.
Oh, this
What's
is
your
a
rating?
solid 5.
A
I
solid
would drink
5.
this again any day. Any day. It's delicious.
The Wanna Shake Your Tree Peach Cream Ale that I'm drinking, I would give it a solid 4.8.
You have a very different rating scale than I do.
I do. I try not to hit 5 unless I'm just like blown out on the water by a beer.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, Courtney, I am just now realizing, as we're sitting here talking about Bobbing Bobber, that we blew right past what we were going to talk about at the beginning of this podcast because we got so excited about popping open the beers.
We did.
And that led to talking about the brewery they came from, of course.
Yep.
We were going to talk about a little bit about a recent trip that I took.
Yes. I really wanted to talk about this trip that you took because you went someplace not in Minnesota.
Yes.
For not brewery purposes, but somehow seemed to have ended up at a different brewery like every day that you were there.
This is pretty much true.
Yeah.
I think, except for the day we arrived, that we flew in, we didn't go to a brewery that day. We tried. They were all closed. It was too late at night. They were closed. But except for that day, I think we went to a brewery every day. That is true.
And you sent me pictures taunting me.
Yes. Well,
look at all these cool places I'm at.
it was partly taunting and partly because I wanted to give you some pictures to put on the Instagram feed, which again, you should be following. True. If you are not following, you should be following our Instagram feed. Anyway, the place that I was, since, we're talking about it now, is the Denver area. We flew into Denver and then drove up towards Loveland, Colorado, which is a place that we have my wife Kristen and I have a very good friend that lives in Loveland now. She's recently moved there because she was getting married to a gentleman that is living in Loveland.
Yes.
I like that other people commented that, oh, you're going to a wedding in Loveland. Loveland weddings.
Loveland, what a great place for a wedding.
Absolutely. But congratulations to Laura and Brett. They are now married, and we had a great time at their wedding. It was a very small ceremony with just mostly their family. And Kristen and I, because we're longtime friends of Laura, we've known her since about the time we got married, about 30 some years ago. And so we were very glad to be invited, and we had a wonderful time at the wedding. But alongside that, my wife Krista also enjoys a good beer and enjoys going to breweries and also plays Munzie. So we were doing all of those things, and we were sitting in our hotel room. And our hotel room, just north of Loveland, is a town called Fort Collins. And actually, our hotel was on the south side of Fort Collins. And so I was like, well, what's the closest brewery to this hotel? Turns out there are many. Fort Collins is like a hotbed of brewing. So the main one that people probably have heard of is New Belgium Brewing Company. New Belgium is the maker of Fat Tire, which a lot of people probably recognize. They also make a series of beers that are IPAs called Voodoo Ranger, and those are very, very, very popular now. But it's a big brewery. If you're from Minneapolis, I would put it, the size of the place, probably on par with Surly. Like if you go to Surly, it's on par with that. I don't know what their barrel numbers are as far as who's making more. I'm sure that New Belgium's probably making more because they have another brewery on the East Coast. But their base is in Fort Collins, and it was a very cool thing. We walked in, we just wanted to have a beer or a flight of beers. And as we were ordering from their extensive list of beers that they had on tap, and they had a lot of them, They had a whole list of like, here's all of the guy was super nice. It's like, here's a whole list of all of our regulars that we have. And then here's another whole list of these are just the ones that we're just trying out. Like,
oh gosh,
these aren't always here. And of course, we didn't have time to sit there and drink all the beers. So we each ordered one. And as we were doing that, another guy who was kind of by the front door watching the merch area came over and said, hey, would you guys like to join a tour? I'm like, well, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
Well, it's only 45 minutes. So if you want to join the tour, we'll, come along. I've only got 3 people on it right now, so that'll make 5. It'll be great. And so, yeah, we said, we're leaving in like 3 minutes. I said, cool. Can I take my beer with me? And he said, absolutely. So I was sold. I was sold on it right away. So we grabbed our beers and we waited a couple of minutes and we followed him off, and, typical tour. He had a lot of funny jokes, stories and stuff about the beginning of the brewery and how it started. And then he took us kind of through a little bit of where the tanks were. And then we went upstairs 1 level to above the big tanks where all the brewing starts. You got the mashed pit thing going around in a circle. And, it's all these, these huge stainless steel tanks. And we're 1 level up and there's a floor that kind of you're walking on. And there's a little bar up there, which he let us pour our own samples from.
Oh.
So it was really a nice little tour for free for 45 minutes. They do a longer tour as well that goes deeper into the brewery. We didn't have time for that one. But it was just a really cool place to visit. It was just neat for me to not, I had kind of thought, well, I thought I had like, okay, on this trip, I'm going to look for breweries. I know I'm going to look for breweries, and I know Colorado has them. I know Colorado has breweries. But I hadn't really looked at Fort Collins because I hadn't really looked north of where we were going to be. And, man, that was really cool to just stumble into New Belgium, a brand that I've known for a long time because they sell all over the country, including Minnesota. And I'd had Fat Tire. Fat Tire was never one of my favorites, but I knew of it. And it was one of the early craft beers that kind of came to Minnesota.
Yeah. Before
we had all of our own local breweries. And so it was very cool to take a tour there. Well, of course, we had friends to visit and wedding preparations to do and things like that. So we were in and out. And so the next day when we had more free time, we're like, oh, well, where are we going to go now? Well, it turns out that like around the corner and a couple of blocks down from New Belgium is Odell's. And Odell's is another well-known brewery, pretty large. Also sells in Minnesota. I've had their beer in Minnesota, and it's wonderful. And so we went there for a nice. I had a nice flight. I sent you that picture, that very cool flight, because they at Odell's, that when you walk in, a lot of places you can design your own flight. You can just pick from the list, and like, I want this, I want that, I want that. They don't do it that way. They have a couple of set flights. Well, actually, they do it that way. You can pick your own, but they do have a couple of set flights, where it's like, here's one set or here's another set. I just picked the first one. It looked like it had a lot of beers on it I would want to try. So I had that. And because it's a set flight, they've got this nice little rack with their little glasses with their logos on them.
Yeah.
And then right behind that, they put a thick plasticky card that sits right behind the beers, and it has the logos that would be on the cans of those beers if you bought them. I mean, it's just... And information about the beers, the alcohol content, the bitterness units. I mean, whatever other information you want to know about the beers is on there. And it was just so colorful and so nicely laid out. And I took those great photos. Again, check the Instagram feed. You'll see them. And
when you sent me that one, I got excited because the presentation of that flight, it was beautiful.
The presentation of it was so well done. So well done. And so we had a really good time sitting in there. It was a very comfortable space, again, pretty large. Both of these places also have very large outdoor areas, which, because when we were there in January, no one was using. We as Minnesotans almost could have sat out there because it was nearing 40 degrees.
You could have been outside.
Yeah, but we didn't have the clothing on to do it. So we didn't. If we had our regular, like how we would dress in Minnesota clothing, we easily could have sat outside. But we didn't have that. So everybody was inside, but both wonderful places to be, wonderful breweries. And so ask me, Courtney, did I go to another brewery?
I feel like you went to at least one more brewery.
Yes. In fact, the next day we went to, well, I started out going to Breckenridge. Krista was out on a women's bridal party shower kind of a thing. I don't know what they would call it. It was a brunch that Krista set up for Laura and her the other people that were at the wedding, her female relatives.
We'll call it girl party.
It was a girl lunch. Okay. So they were out at this girl lunch, and I was like out geocaching and doing some Munzie and also filming a video for my YouTube channel. So I was in doing all of that. I finished up and I'm like, well, what am I going to do next? Well, I want to go to that next brewery that's like 2 doors down from Odell's called Breckenridge.
Oh my gosh.
Breckenridge, not quite as big as the other two, but still a name that I had heard before.
But these are all in close proximity to each other.
I mean, literally, you could walk from one to the next. They're right next to each other.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Odell's in between, too. In between these two breweries had a winery. So you could go next door and do wine if you want instead of beer. Very cool.
Nice.
Anyway, I was going to Breckenridge, and I just sent her a quick text, said, hey, I'm going to Breckenridge Brewing. I looked on my iPhone because I can see where she is. We track each other. I figured out she was like a mile away. She was in the old downtown of Fort Collins at a place that they had having this brunch. So she said, well, we're almost done here. Come and pick me up. So I drove over the mile and picked her up, and then we got back to Breckenridge, and Breckenridge also serves food, so I had a burger and fries in there. It was wonderful. And I don't remember which beer I had when I was in there. It was a darker beer, as I remember, but it was wonderful. And just the brewery culture in Fort Collins clearly is off the charts. They have these well-known breweries, sure.
Yeah.
But I looked on my map, when you Google breweries near me, which is my most popular search item on Google. Breweries near me. Just over like where Krista was having lunch, like a mile away, there were 3 more breweries within a block of where she was.
Oh my gosh.
And I didn't get a chance to go to any of those.
You need to go back.
Yeah. We'll get back. We have good friends now in Loveland, right? So we're going to get back there in better weather and have a chance to sit on some of these patios. And so if you're out there, traveling the country, I would suggest, if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably interested in beer, right?
I would hope so.
Yeah, you're probably interested in beer. So get out and just use your Google machine and say breweries near me, wherever you are, and you'll find some good ones. And it's fun to stumble into one like we did with Bobbing Bobber.
Absolutely.
Where we just stumbled into one that we now love.
Yeah. I mean, I would honestly drive the hour out to Hutchinson just to go to Bobbing Bobber.
Yeah. It's a beautiful drive. I mean, driving west of the Twin Cities, it's a beautiful drive anyway. And a wonderful place to visit. So yeah, if you're traveling wherever you are, just visit the local breweries. They're usually very relaxed places to just sit and, let your hair down a little bit for a while. And are you laughing because I don't have hair? I am. I got a haircut today. Okay. It looks even less than it normally does. I got the haircut today, but anyway, but yeah, breweries are usually a place that you can just relax, which is why we do this podcast. We love them.
That's why we do it. Did you notice anything distinctly different about the breweries in Colorado than the breweries you go to here?
All the people are dressed like they're ready to go mountain biking.
Yes.
I think it's typical of people in Colorado.
Well, probably.
They're dressed like they're ready to go mountain biking or hiking, and they're driving a Subaru. It is. I know you drive a Subaru, and there are so many.
I do.
Yeah, you do. There are so many Subarus out there. It really is like, I think it's the Subaru state. It must be, because there's so many of them.
So what I'm hearing is I could move to Colorado and fit right in.
You would fit in Colorado, absolutely. When we were driving around, because we had to drive from Fort Collins back down to Loveland multiple times, and we took different routes just to get a little bit of a different view. And constantly passing like open areas like parks And even in the weather that we had there, which was, it was ranging between, excuse me, that I'm still drinking beer here. Yep. Still drinking beer here. Ranging between 30 degrees Fahrenheit and, 40 or so. And people, like every parking lot we pass, there's numbers of vehicles in the lots. People out, hiking, walking their dogs, whatever they're doing. But I think Colorado in general just has a really outdoor culture.
Yeah.
Yeah, people really enjoying it. Now, when you're in Loveland, I don't know if people are familiar with where Loveland is. This is kind of north of Denver. And if you look to the west, you can definitely see the beginnings of the mountains. You don't see any of the tall ones, really. You see kind of the foothills. But they're right there. I mean, it's not very far, and you can just go straight up the hill from Loveland, and you're in Estes Park, Colorado, which is way up the hill. Way up the hill. So a beautiful place to be. Colorado is a wonderful state to visit. And we did hit one more brewery on the way out, and I'm not going to remember the name. It started with an S. It was a much smaller brewery. I'm sure if we looked again at our Instagram feed, we could probably find the photo that shows the name of the brewery on the glass. You can if you want to. But people listening to this podcast can go look. That's what we want them to do.
Yeah. At the Brewery Adventure.
Yeah, that's the Brewery Adventure. You got to go check it out. We did stop at one more because we had time. We stopped in Boulder on our way back to the airport on our last day there. And we walked up and down their kind of Main Street Promenade Street and bought a gift for our grandson, and then had pizza at the place that the guy in the store where we bought the T-shirt for our grandson said we should go. And then we were like, well, we have a little more time before we leave town, so let's hit one of those breweries. And Boulder has a number of them, and we picked one, and it was a nice experience. We had a really good time there. Had a very dark beer, and it was wonderful.
That's perfect.
So, yeah, you just can find breweries everywhere, and they're great places to visit.
Absolutely. That's why we're here.
That's why we're here, because we like breweries.
Yeah.
We like breweries. So we've talked a little bit tonight about Bobbing Bobber, obviously, my trip to Colorado, and about Munzie. So we've kind of covered it all.
Yeah.
If you see on our website, when you go and look at that, you'll see our names. It'll say Tim and a little bio about me, and Courtney a little bio about her. But below our names, it'll have another name. Courtney, what are those names for?
Those names are our Munzie and geocaching names.
Correct. I use Minnesota Boy in both geocaching and Munzie circles, and Courtney is Mecca MN.
Yes.
So you can look us up if you play those games. You can find us there.
Always, of course, you can find us there. You can also contact us at Courtney at the Brewery Adventure or Tim at the Brewery Adventure if you feel the need to email us with anything. Comments, suggestions, feedback about the podcast, places we should go next to visit. We're open to all of it.
Absolutely. Contact us at either of those email addresses. You can also just go to our website, thebreweryadventure.com, and you'll find links to all of those other things there to contact us, and also links to the Instagram, also links to our Untapped, where we track our beers. Very important. And also links. I have a YouTube link on there next to my bio. There'll be a YouTube link to my YouTube channel, which is videos about geocaching and Munzie gameplay. So you could go and check that out if you want.
Also super helpful if you're not familiar with those games. You do a really good job of introducing people to different aspects of those games and how to get into them.
Well, thank you very much. I enjoy doing it. So you can also check out the YouTube channel for the Brewery Adventure, because we do have one of those too.
Yes, we absolutely do.
On that YouTube channel called the Brewery Adventure, you will find short little videos about the breweries that we visit and talk about on the podcast. So you can get just a short little view about what they look like.
I would recommend checking that out.
Yeah, you can also find the podcast on that YouTube channel, by the way. So if you're a big YouTuber, if you like YouTube a lot and you want to listen to the podcast through there, you can go right to there and listen to the podcast as well.
Heck yeah.
Is that it?
I think we're wrapping up this episode.
We are almost at 40 minutes on this episode, so it's a little bit longer than usual, but we talked about my trip and all that, so that took a little bit of time. So join us next time on the Brewery Adventure when we will be talking about what? Do we even know?
I don't think we even know. It's going to be a magic mystery surprise.
It's going to be a magic mystery surprise because we haven't decided yet what brewery we're going to talk about next.
Now accepting feedback.
Yes. Please, if you have suggestions as to which brewery we should talk about, comment. Send us to those email addresses. Comment on the YouTube feed. You can comment anywhere and we'll find it. And then we will think about going to the brewery that you love.
I mean, we'll probably go there. We'll think about recording an episode for it.
Correct.
How about that?
We'll most likely go there.
Yeah, we're going to go there.
If it's in the Twin Cities, we probably might have already been there, and then we're going to go there again.
Yes.
Yeah, because it's recent.
Absolutely. All
right. Well, Courtney, thanks for recording tonight. We've had a good time. I hope everyone listening has had a good time, and we will see you. We won't see you. You will hear us next time when we're talking about yet another brewery in Minnesota. So cheers until then.
Cheers.
How do I turn it off, Courtney?
Push the button.
Where's the button? Oh, stop.